right, hope everybody's doing awesome. We are here on Casey Music Talk. I'm Rob Foster. Our guest today is a guitar player and performer here in Kansas City, Scott Ford. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
I know I met you through Scott Lane.
Right.
I know you
Yeah.
guys have been buddies for a while, and
Long time.
and you've had us up. Come over to your little jam
Sure.
once in a while, and I always enjoy your playing, man.
Thanks,
and
man. Appreciate it.
Your attitude is really awesome too. Like you have good.
It wasn't always.
It wasn't always. That's funny, but you seem to have kind of a somewhat of an optimistic attitude of getting out there and playing and stuff. And a lot of times we've talked to some of them on the show so far that have had kind of a super like jaded attitude towards the music business, and
Absolutely.
some of that's warranted, but yeah, so I've always appreciated that the times we've talked.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get where I got for what it's worth by myself. There was people pulling me along and giving me shows that maybe I didn't deserve at the time, but they believed in me enough. I was actually just texting some friends of mine with Radio Free Texas out kind of by Beaumont, but it's an online radio station, and thanking them for all the opportunities that they gave me over the years and charting my songs and things like that. So it was a good conversation. But
Yeah. Hey, just because he's definitely probably gonna watch this, tell Scott Lane how much of a turd he is.
Well, never ever walk in with guitar picks because he will steal all of them.
What do you think about that, Scott? buddy of mine that I play with.
We were just texting about that the other night.
But anyway,
I turned my phone off here.
yeah,
Sorry about that.
all right, yeah. But so tell people. I forget to do this sometimes every single show, but tell people a little bit about yourself, like what you do.
Well, I started rodeoing in my 20s. I was a professional rodeo clown for 7 years.
Wow.
And a friend of mine would come over to the house, and we'd do karaoke, and you know how crazy that gets.
You were a rodeo clown, yeah. Wow, my brain is like,
Yeah, I did that. I got 3 gold buckles, and
really,
and
it's all coming together now.
Right, yeah, I'm crazy.
It all makes sense.
So a friend of mine was a drummer, and him and his now wife would come over and do karaoke and stuff, and he's like, man, we need to be in a band or whatever, and I'm like, dude, I'm not in high school anymore, that's not really where I'm at, and he talked me into it, and that's how Scott Lane and I met. He was our first lead guitar player, and kind of went from there. It was the Scott Ford and the Gold Buckle Band coming from the rodeo days, trying to really do like that Chris Ledoux kind of rock and country, anything that had to do with cowboys, we were covering it. And my senior year in high school, my English teacher was really into poetry, and that clicked for me for some reason, which in turn turned into songwriting, and which was a really easy transition if you're into that. One of my co-write buddies, Kevin Perry, he's got several books on #1 on Amazon, but he writes poetry. He doesn't sing, play guitar, or anything else, but he's a great lyricist that helps me if I'm stuck on a song or that kind of thing. So
Yeah, I have trouble. We weren't going to talk about this, but I have trouble. No, that's all right. I have trouble writing lyrics.
Yeah.
I have a really easy time finding chords and
Sure.
beats and sometimes even melodies, and I definitely have a lot of fun, like, because my stuff's like prog rock, so there's a lot of sections and it's complicated, and like mapping out what sounds good, this needs to come after that, and etc. But boy, I have trouble with lyrics. Do you have anything that you struggle with lyrics, or something that's really easy about it? Or
I'll tell you, a friend of mine, Jackson Taylor, I was at his house one day, and he has this big wall of books in his house, or he did at the time, and he's like, I gotta find this book for you, it's really gonna help you write songs. And I'm like, all right. So I'm sitting there, and he's digging through the books and all this, and you're like, bro, just tell me about it, like. But at the same time, I wanted to know what it was, and so finally he finds this book, and it's a rhyming dictionary.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, I'm gonna give this to you, never use it.
Yeah.
He's like, that's your reminder to never use it, because if you go to that book, then it's not real. So
Yeah,
come up with,
yeah.
even if you got to walk away from it for a while and come back to it,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So
Yeah, and boy, I mean, like, yeah, I have one. Yeah,
Right.
I have one. I've used it before, you know,
Yeah.
and it's, you know,
it's there, but it's not
there,
really
yeah.
heartfelt at that point, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I've been tempted many times, but I just walk away from it and
Mm-hmm.
go back and whatever. So
Yeah,
but
yeah.
songwriting comes. I don't want to say it comes easy to me. It comes in waves. I'll put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Some days, like I wrote 2 songs this week, and wrote both of them in less than 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you know, for you songwriters out there, don't get frustrated. Just you know, and here's the best advice out of all of that advice that I ever got from a guy. And I don't remember who told me, but but he said, when you think your song's done, send it to a friend.
Mm. Yeah.
Because they'll change some word that'll make it magical. And I know it's your baby. I promise. I get it. But pass it on. And you don't have to change it if you don't want to. But a lot of times it's worth the change.
Yeah. Yeah, that's hard for people, the baby part.
Oh,
you
yeah,
know? I mean,
absolutely.
you don't want to take advice from somebody and
Obviously, you're going to send it to people you trust.
Right,
You
right.
know, and that's not going to destroy your song or whatever else.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, I know back in college we had a band and we wouldn't exactly write together, but we'd kind of do that where they'd come up with a lot of it, and then there a couple times, you know, we needed, because again they were, you know, mildly complicated, more than like verse chorus bridge
Sure.
kind of songs, and there'd just be one little spot on how do we get back from here into here, and
Right.
then another bandmate would go, oh, here, and then
Do this.
everybody's like, boom, that's
Done.
you know,
Yeah.
and so but everybody in the band had a, you know, somewhat of an open personality that they could be okay
you have
with
to
that,
be.
you know.
I mean, I mean, sometimes you can walk away and go, "Screw that guy! He doesn't know what he's talking about." You know what I mean? But
the ego of it,
Yeah.
you know, everybody had to
Yeah.
let go of that ego,
and that's,
yeah.
I mean, talking about shows, that's the biggest thing in the world. You know, I played a show with some great songwriters, Jason Craig and John Goolsby and Phil Vandal the other night, and I mean, the 4 of us on stage, we've known each other for too long to tell, and there was no ego on stage, and we were laughing. My stomach hurt the next day. We were laughing so hard. We had such a great time, and that goes into playing shows. You know, whether it's your songwriting or whether it's your shows or whatever else the case may be. Check your ego at the door.
Yeah.
You know, I've had people I look up to. They're like, the difference between me and you is I got more CDs out. It's not that I'm doing anything you're not doing. You know, we're all grinding it out. We're all trying to make some money and have some fun. I mean, you know, I'm past the point of thinking I'm going to be rich and famous. So
Yeah,
you know.
sure. Yeah.
Unless
yeah.
it's the writing a song, so I'll
Right.
take that too.
And that's a hard balance to make, because you have to have some, like, ego. You know, you have to have a little bit. To
You've
be
got to
able
be
to
type
get
A
it.
personality to be
Yeah,
a front person,
right.
or any really buddy on stage. And the marriage of that is tough to keep together in a band, as you know, and I
Right.
know, and whatever else. We've all been there where somebody's ego's, you know, a little bigger than the other person's or whatever else, and the band's trying to check them, and they finally bail on you or whatever.
Right.
But you know, and in the end of that whole scenario, you end up still great friends after you realize that you were all stupid. You know what I mean?
Hopefully.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
in most cases.
Right. Yeah.
But-
So you and I were talking about just some of the bands that you've been in the past, and
Right.
you were talking a little bit about we were talking how a lot of bands get a point where they kind of go up to a St. Joe, or they get to go kind of outside of their town.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, you know, you've had the opportunity to go like outside of town
Oh.
quite a bit. And can you talk a little bit about touring?
Well, it's funny. We were talking about funny stories, right? So, funny story. I'm going to play Hayes, and my tour manager was from Hayes, and so we got the radio interview and all that morning before we were leaving to head out that way, and so these DJs are, you know, blowing it up like it's some big deal, and you know, I'm with my Expedition and my trailer, and they're like, "So you getting ready to get on the bus and head this way?" And I'm like, "Nope, getting ready to get in the van." And, "Oh, so you got your driver?" "Nope, I'm driving." Like, you know, their image of what we were at the time was a lot bigger than what we really were, and we stopped by the station, talked to everybody, and had a great time, and whatever. But it was it was a perspective thing. You know, they thought, oh, here's this band coming from Kansas City. They must have a bus. You know, they must have this. And we did on some shows, and it was a lot of fun.
Right.
But that was when we were down in Texas and stuff. So.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, you said that you've gone down to Texas quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
You said,
I used to play Texas. At least once a month generally for a long time, and from Beaumont to Amarillo, I mean, that's a big state. So Stockyards was fun, and there's different shows down there. I got to play for Radio Free Texas, like I talked about a little bit. A lot of their events and stuff like that. And took full band down and played acoustic, and you know, song swaps like we were talking about with Phil and all those guys. You know, that's a big thing down there because they can cram a lot of artists into a show.
Sure.
And you put 3 people up there, and you may only have 3 or 4 songs that you get to do in 45 minutes. And your etiquette, like we were talking about, is very important. You don't want to sit there and talk for 5-10 minutes before your song and then play your song, because now you just cut 2 guys out of songs, you know, and that burns people. But you get down there and you play your best stuff, and people come up and buy your stuff or whatever else, want to know more about you, find you on Facebook and whatever else. So.
Yeah. So like we were joking before we started about like different states or whatever. I'm kind of curious about Texas specifically. Like how was the crowds down there that you saw? Like, was there anything interesting that you didn't expect, or that like?
So it depends on the venue and it depends on the crowd.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot, but my friends that I book shows for up here come up here and love it because everybody's paying attention. Well, everybody's paying attention because they haven't got to see you. You know what I mean? You, me, and everybody else that plays Kansas City all the time, you know, they can go, well, I don't really have to pay attention because I can see them tomorrow, or, you know, whatever else. Yeah. And when I go down there, I get that response where people listen. They want to hear what I have to say in my songs and stuff like that. And so it's very rewarding to go there. And, you know, like I said, Texas is a huge state. So, you know, it's not like we did one of the crazy trips. We did 5 shows in 4 days and 1,700 miles. And, and we were wiped out, you know. Yeah. And the ironic part, I was like, all right, if I went 1,700 miles and I left L.A., where would I end up? Kansas City, of course, right?
Yeah,
you know.
That's funny.
So I was sitting in the back of the bus, like,
that's
calculating it.
And that's crazy. And some guy, you know, some of these other like much old timers talk about, you know,
road
tours
warriors,
like that,
man.
where they're, and you were talking about a time where you, I think you said something like you were on for 5 weeks and then back for one.
Yeah, we did 6 weeks on and 1 week off.
Okay, yeah.
And then generally would only play in Kansas City 1 week, unless it was like an opener or something to that effect. Then we would. Those usually fell on a Thursday. It's just the way that the Texas country guys would come through here on pass-through dates trying to get to Chicago or something like that. So we played a lot of openers on Thursdays, whether it was the Beaumont Club or the Uptown or Knuckleheads or wherever it was.
Yeah, and so like I'm really curious about on a tour like that, what's going on not in the showtime? That's what I'm like really curious, you know, like what are you doing all day?
Well,
you know what I mean? Like
Nathan Flax, hi Nate, if you watch this. Nathan and I were the king of washers. Like we would spot people 20 points. You only played at 21, and we would beat them. So there was a lot of that going on, and you know, really, I work a lot, and when you're doing that, you're spending. For every hour you spend on stage, you're spending 3 or 4 hours off stage trying to book, trying to write, trying to coordinate routes, whatever else. You know, because I was doing it all myself. I wasn't paying anyone to do it. I mean, there were certain venues that were required to go through certain agency or whatever else in order to play, so you'd use them. But for the most part, it's bar owner to me talking, which, talking about Nate, that's the best thing in the world that you can have when you're on the road, because if you go up and start, what's the language barrier on this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, anything goes, all right. Yeah. But if you go up and start bitching at the bar owner, then Scott Ford's the asshole, right?
Right.
But if Nate goes up, it's that damn tour manager. I'll talk to Scott all day, and we'll have him back. But that tour manager, and he's just trying to get you what they promised you, you know, and they're just trying to play that game. But
so you didn't have a manager like the one that 6 week on?
Yeah, Nate went with us, and he was our driver and merch and everything else, and made sure we got to the gig on time, and made sure we got paid right, and made sure he worked harder than anybody else in the band. I promise you, but
Right. I mean, that's nice to have somebody else doing that. I mean, because you just mentioned, I mean, how
that's
much
the only way you
kinda
can do it, because
stuff
when
in
you
your
get off
ear.
stage, regardless of how big or small the event is, the front guy in the band needs to be tearing their stuff down, and Nate needs to be getting us paid, and I need to be out shaking hands and kissing babies,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And we really, like, I tell the band, I'm like, they don't pay us to play, they pay us to leave, so pack your stuff, let's go, you know. It was just kind of the way it went.
Yeah, and yeah, that's really interesting because I know that when I've heard people talk, like comedians will talk about this, where everybody sees the limelight spot. You know,
Right,
they're up
absolutely.
on stage and the girls are and they see the drinks flying and then the guy was joking. He was joking that he was like, my life is looking at the back of airplane seats.
Sure.
He's like, that is actually my life. This
Right.
is like 2 hours of a whole day.
Yeah.
You didn't see the other 14 hours today.
Sure.
Where another guy was talking about that he had his best show ever, this comedian, and at the end of the night is like 2:30 in the morning. He's in a hotel at the end of the end of the hall, staring at a bag of Skittles in a vending machine. You know, when he had his best night he's ever had.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the night, he's just another guy sitting there again. You know, and it's kind of
It's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And you know, and when you're playing these shows, they're putting you up in the cheapest hotel they can find, you know, so you run the risk of your stuff getting stolen. And, you know, I've slept in hotels in my jeans and my hoodie and my boots on because I'm like, I'm not pulling the covers back on this thing.
Yeah, that's
you
funny.
know,
Yeah,
just
that's
like,
funny.
sleep till we get sober enough to go drive somewhere, you know. It's like,
Me and Scott, when we went down to, it was down near the Ozarks, and we went to this hotel, and it said it was like no cleaning fish in the sink or something.
Oh,
We're all
my
like,
gosh.
dude, that is really funny.
Well, we were at this hotel one time, and everybody I'm not going to say where it was,
Yeah.
but everybody that stayed there knows. And I wake up the next morning and I'm like, what happened in here? And Nate was my roomie, and he's like, what? I'm like, there's blood all over this wall, and it's like dried up blood. And I'm like, somebody got killed in here at some point in time, you know?
That's funny. Like,
So yeah, they're not nice hotel rooms.
yeah. And
Which is why it's nice. Like, I have a friend that has a bus, and so when we were in Texas for a long time, the bus is nice. And then Nate wasn't tour manager, Brent was, and but Brent snores. I was like, I'm gonna buy you a tent so you can sleep outside.
the bus is fun. We had one for a couple gigs.
Yeah,
and
it's
with
a good
Scott,
time.
and it's
But it's expensive, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
It's like, I was blessed to have a friend that let us use it and whatever. But yeah, it's expensive.
Yeah. So another question I had was, I have been absolutely fascinated by club owners, and when I ran a little band a while ago, and that was a real learning curve for me. Is to how to, like, for example, Scott does it with humor. You know, he'll come up to you, make you feel good or whatever.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we've talked about this on the show a lot. And how do you kind of come at them? You know, is it like another guy I met? He came at him real aggressive. You know, mildly aggressive. Of, hey man, we're a great band. You know, when do you want us? Not if, when. You know. And
You mean like booking on
you
that side?
like booking and getting to know them and like you know what I'm saying.
So
like,
a lot of the booking part is, I mean, and this is a business, so you have to approach it as a business, right? You need contracts. You need an LLC to protect you personally if you're the band leader like me. If my band does something stupid in the bar, I'm protected under that LLC. They're not coming after me directly. They're coming after the corporation, right? So you definitely need that. All of that will cost you like $200 if you just find the right attorney to get it all set up for you.
Yeah.
You know, definitely a must if you're out gigging, because we've all been there where we show up and there's another band there, and you couldn't play that night because you were supposed to play there, but they got there first and then are loading out, so now you don't have a show. You know, so contracts, number one. And it just depends on the bar owner. Like, there's a bar in Kansas City, it's changed hands and everything else now, but they came at us 3 days before New Year's Eve. Well, I don't like playing New Year's Eve. I don't like the craziness. I mean, you can make a killing playing New Year's Eve, but you put up with a lot of crap. And they're like, we have to have you have a national open or national headlining. We need an opener, and the opener backed out, and blah 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 blah. I'm like, look, it's going to be X amount of dollars, and it wasn't cheap. I'm like, you got 3 days. I'm already planning on having a party at my house, so I have to be off the stage at 10 o'clock. This is my deal. And I want my contract and my money before I ever unload anything. And so we get there, and it's 6,000 people venue.
Yeah.
And no contract, no money. And I'm like, what do you guys want to do? We can go home. I'm like, that was my agreement. I got it in writing. So they're like, we're here. We'll just unload. He'll probably be here in a little while, blah, blah, blah. And we've had problems getting paid right from them before. And I'm like, man, this ain't going to work out right, but whatever. We got a contract sent to them, and it's all documented through emails and stuff. So long and short, we play our set. And we get done, and I'm loading the last piece of gear out, and we still haven't been paid. And I was like, well, my attorney will be in touch on Monday, and it'll be twice as much. Wait. Mind you, there's 6,000 people in this place, and we look like the mob taking them off at the end of the bar because they're counting out 5s and 10s and whatever else to get us our money. And it was like, so there I was pretty aggressive because they'd already kind of screwed me over before.
Yeah.
But if it's somebody that I work with a lot and they're just having a bad night or whatever else, it's like, man, catch me next time, whatever. You know?
Yeah, you're talking about afterwards. I'm talking about before, like
the booking part of it.
Before they've said
the booking
yes,
part of it.
You know?
The booking part of it. It goes back to that business thing. You know, like. This is Scott Ford with the Ford Entertainment Group. I'm booking my band, blah, 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 blah. If you come at them that way, it's a lot more professional than if it's, hey, I'm Scott Ford and I got a band and I want to come play your bar.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And then the other part is, like me, my name's on the deal, right? Have your guitar player call. They're not going to know whether he's a guitar player or the booking or the management or the whatever else. This is, you know, at the time, David Burford, the Ford Entertainment Group booking Scott Ford, blah, 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 blah. You know, that's an easy way to sell it that it's not the band booking it, but it sounds like a management company trying to come in.
A wife sometimes can sound good too. I'm
Absolutely.
their secretary, you know,
Absolutely.
like, you know, they can sound like you're pro. I guess
You're a music agent, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's and you can write all that into your LLC, so it's legit anyway. And generally speaking, if you come at them that way, you're going to make more money too.
So here's my question. So you have a couple things you mentioned. You talked about a contract. You talked about making an LLC. You talked about like having a person that books. Like there's a lot of bands. This is another thing that I've been fascinated by. All of us are basically sitting at this $300 to $400 gigs around town, and we get kicked out of a place, and we go back to another one, and then we play 3 shows and get kicked out, and then we're all of a sudden 70. and then
I mean, I'm in the same boat. I've been doing the same honky tonks and everything else forever.
But it's easy when you get, and I've talked about this on the show. I call it the muscle. I call it the idea where you get up to a point where they can go look on your website and you just have this listing of the last 3 years. We played at the Beaumont Club. We played at Knuckleheads. We played at da-da-da. And now they can see the list of your accomplishments or whatever.
Right.
And then also you show them, you know, they go look at your calendar. Okay, he's got 5 gigs booked this month, you know, he's got another 4 next month, and they can see you're playing. So now all of a sudden you have like this muscle to be able to say, hey man, we're like, you know, mildly legit. And then now it feels like they start taking you seriously when you bring them a contract, when you have your agent, when you...
All of it's business, you know.
All of us are having trouble getting, because that's like a second stage to me.
Right, no, absolutely.
Would your argument be all these, you know, garage bands that be like, we're not big enough to have an LLC? What would you tell them?
Absolutely, you are. I started my LLC when it was me and a guitar. You know, and that was honestly an argument that came up was I had my LLC. I brought this new band in, and their first show was playing in front of 3,000 people at the Beaumont Club on the outside stage, right? And then they're like, time goes by, a couple of years, whatever. They're like, hey, if you get picked up by Nashville, we're out, so we want to be part owners of the LLC. And so I had to sit down and think, what is this LLC worth to sell part of it off, right?
Yeah.
You know, and that became a whole big argument, and that's why we were talking about before, like, you know, that's where bands kind of, You know,
stuff like that.
Because honestly, and I told the guy straight up, I'm like, look, if anybody was going to get part of this free, it was going to be Scott Lane or Jeff Ritzmeyer, the guys that were playing the VFW halls when I was cutting my teeth and learning how to do this. Not the guys that walk in and play their first show in front of 3,000 people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but man, you're never too small or too big or whatever, right? To start it right.
Yeah.
You know, get your LLC, get your contracts done, and make sure they're professional contracts. You can look online and find contracts all over the place that you can steal from people. I mean, I'll send you mine. It's legit, and I mean, it doesn't have him separating my green M&Ms or anything, but you know, it's legit, and it'll get you wherever you want to go. I mean, you just have to approach it as a business. Don't approach it as, hey, we're still in the garage and we're trying to get out of here. And the other thing you brought up was having the muscle to prove whatever. That doesn't mean anything.
You don't think that means anything?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You know what means something to bar owners? How many asses are in the seat when you go play?
Well, sure.
That's what matters. Yeah. But my kick for that was, they're like, well, how many people are you going to bring? I'm like, 5. They're like, 5? I'm like, yeah. Bass player, drummer, guitar player, me, and a merch guy.
And this happens all the time. What did he say to that?
He's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, it depends on how much you advertise. If you advertise, I'll advertise. We'll bring some people in here. You know? And that's I've seen so many bands come in and shoot this high $1,200 price, right? I'm playing out of town. I got to make all my money here. That's the wrong way to approach that. You make all your money playing in town, and you spend all your money out of town. Because you're trying to build your network, right? So you're playing your in-town shows. Everybody takes a certain cut. Like, obviously, you should be making more than $100 a person if you're playing in town, because this is your home base. This is where you make money. And then you save that money as a band, have your band account. I mean, like, all this is business, but have your band account. That pays for your gas to get there. If they don't give you hotel rooms, whatever it is. And then once you come back, then you build up your band account so you can go on the road again. But you can't expect some bar that's never heard of you, that the fans have never heard of you, to pay you a whole bunch of money. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
You've got to build that network. And that was the benefit of me being on Radio Free Texas, was I was on the air.
Yeah, so that's huge. I mean,
right. I mean, that was the biggest blessing I could ever had.
Yeah, and that's nice. And I keep coming back to that's afterwards, right? The on the air is you
that's
know what
today.
I mean?
That's today, right now.
Well, I'm talking about that. It would be awesome for us as a duo to be getting 5, you know, and so.
Oh, yeah,
so
but you're not going to get that in Kansas City, because Kansas City lost. Like, I was in the right time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, Kansas City somehow thought they were going to be Austin, and they ain't paying crap anymore.
Right,
you know what I mean? I mean, I used to go down here to Will Jenny's and make $300. Me with a guitar.
Right.
Well, that was easy for me to fund my band touring whenever I could just go out and throw down, and it wasn't. Right. It was my band, so I was throwing all 300 into the kitty so we could go tour somewhere. Right. You know. So if I do that 2 or 3 times a week, then we could afford to go tour every weekend. See what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah.
But you can't do that anymore. I mean, the venues just won't pay it. And
well, so that's another question that I had, is that I'm struggling right now with, and I deal with this with my students too, because I've been thinking a lot about like personal responsibility in myself, and knowing if you want to set it up in this framework of, like, for example, how many students do I have? Is this just because I'm not advertising? Is it just because that I'm saying something to the kids and or the parents and they're not booking, or is in the 80s were people just interested in Suzuki, you know, putting their kids through violin,
right.
And now it just happens to be a time where less kids are, you know, less parents. And then with music, I've talked about this many times, that every 50-year-old I talk to in town goes, dude, we had a shitty band in 1990. We were playing 5 nights a week.
Right.
It was terrible, and we were playing 5, you know, but now,
so
do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
you're talking about
how much like responsibility do I need to put, and you know, annoyance do I need to put on myself, or I'm just not working hard enough, or how much is it?
Man,
it's just not the right.
I'll tell you
the time's different, you know.
Just to keep this in mind, besides working a day job, I was doing 5 hours a night, every night of the week, whether I was playing, booking, whatever else. I mean, I was full tilt working on this stuff and trying to get my numbers up on Reverb Nation. I mean, I got a letter from a guy named, his name's Jimmy Cooper. His son's a songwriter, great guy out of Wichita Falls, Johnny Cooper. And Jimmy and I had a long conversation like we're having today about business and everything else. And he basically, and I'll forward it to you, he basically sent me how to become famous in music. I mean, it was like this step, this step, this step. And I was just trying to follow that as best as I could because he'd already been through that. He'd learned those growing pains and was saving me from doing it. But to answer your question, as far as kids aren't into music the way they were, you know, you're not going to get the students. You know, violin is so easily taught horribly most of the time in a school setting that they think I've been there at school all day, I don't need to take extra unless they're really dedicated to it, you know. So as far as getting more students, I think advertising, but now you have a cost for advertising, and how much is that really going to draw in? You know, you and me, we talk about business side of music. I remember hanging flyers, right? You get lucky to get 2%. So you get 2 people out of every 100 flyers you post.
It's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time. But I did it because that was my passion, you know. And it's the same with Facebook, you know. You want to pay to get people to see your deal or whatever. So now you're spending $30, $50, whatever to advertise a show. Well, that's $50, $30, whatever off the top before you even do anything with your band. So, you know, the necessary evils of social media are there definitely, but it's a tool you have to utilize. And you know, so whether it's advertising for the band or for lessons or whatever the case may be, use what is offered to you and see what your reward is. And then gauge on a business perspective, is this valued money that I'm spending, or am I not getting the return and I should stop doing that?
Yeah, because I mean, I've talked to a bunch of people on the show that this is kind of the bottom question of, well, it's just the audience, it's just the club owners, it's just the times we live in, it's just and so they have this laundry list of excuses about why the music business sucks, or why their life is doing kind of crappy right now, and why they didn't turn out, and and so I'm struggling with that right now.
I'm so blessed, and I say this all the time. I had bar owners that believed in me before I played a note, and friends that put me in situations that I took advantage of. You know, I tell people all the time, you get to talk about opening acts, right? You're an opening act for a band. Well, everybody thinks that's the most exciting thing in the world, right? So I'm standing in a line waiting to go watch my friends open for another friend, and the music starts playing. We were at the Beaumont Club standing outside trying to get in, and the music starts playing, everybody freaks out in line. And some girl turns around and goes, "It's just the opener." Like, all right, that just put that whole thing in perspective. I am still nobody, you know, like, but at the same time, we were talking about playing a big show and then turn around and playing a small show. You go play a big show and I would sell, and merch is a whole nother conversation we can get into, but you would go sell $100 worth of merch and get 10 people on your email list, but those people would never probably ever go to a show again. And then you go play the small venue that has 50 people in it the next night, and you sell $100 worth of merch and you get 10 people on the email list. True story happened, back-to-back nights, and those 10 people follow you till the ends of the earth.
Right.
Because they got to be a part of you.
Yeah.
You know, you got to interact with them, you talk to them, whatever. When you're on a big stage, you don't get that interaction. You know, you're out there selling your music, and they're either buying it or they're not. You know.
Yeah, and I mean, those big stages are for the advertising, really, right? I mean, you're getting, like on the radio, you're getting a big radio thing.
But the radio thing, is the best thing in the world. If you can get in the radio thing, that's the best thing in the world. You get there, like, you sleep, you live opposite, right? So, say you're playing a show in Wichita, okay? So you leave here in the morning, super early, get down there for their morning show so you can be on the radio. You go get your hotel room and you sleep. And then you go play your show. And then you drive to the next show. Because you got to be there in the morning to be on the radio. And then you sleep. And then you play your show.
Sounds nice, you know.
It's grueling.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, nice in the sense that all of that is set up. and you're on the radio, you know.
But you're the one setting it up.
Yeah,
like your person with your LLC is setting it up. Hey, we got this single, it's popping, blah 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 blah. We want to get on the radio. We're playing at so and so Joe's bar tonight. Can we come in and do a 10 minutes on the radio with you and promote the show and play you a song and be done? They love it. Like, they want it. So
see, I can feel, this is what I was talking about right when we started. I can feel I'm setting, you're like, even how I just mentioned that's like this unachievable, that's this thing up there, and you're like, come on, dude, I mean, you just get on the radio, you know, it's like, and, you know, so, but that's,
it doesn't come easy when you're first trying to book it, but once
Right.
you've done it, it's like, hey, I'm playing your bar, you want me on the radio?
Right, yeah.
You know, here's my Reverb Nation link, you know, here's my videos, here's a list of, you know, whoever I've played with and venues I played. But that was the thing you were talking about earlier, and I wanted to touch on that real quick. When you're booking your schedule, don't put your whole schedule on them. Only put your schedule that's out the next week. Because,
that's interesting.
Because if you put your schedule out for the month, right? Hey, I'm playing here, 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 here.
Then they know I can just wait for the,
And then they won't come to that either.
Right, yeah.
Right?
That's interesting.
So only put out, like, I mean, if you're going to Texas or Oklahoma or whatever, put that on there because those people actually have to think about, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, sure.
I got to schedule my life so that I can make sure I don't miss the
talking
show.
in town.
But in town,
yeah.
I wouldn't put anything past a week.
Yeah, that's interesting.
People ask me all the time, they're like, when are you playing next? I'm like, I'll tell you Monday because I don't even look at my schedule till Monday.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, but I can feel the optimism, pessimism thing with that. You know, just become Beaver. It'll happen. It's
I mean, it's
like
wait.
You know.
How do you know till you try it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I hear you. You know.
I mean, I recorded it. I wrote a song 2 days ago, recorded it today, and put a video out today. Like, you just do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's a matter of sitting down, being determined, and this is what you want. You know, what's your ultimate goal, I guess, would be the thing that I would set out. And then make your steps to get to that goal, right? I mean, I never thought I'd ever have a number one song. I never thought I'd play with the acts that I've played with. You know, and I tell people, I'm like, I could quit singing tomorrow and I still achieve way more than I ever thought I would have.
Sure.
But
what
it's
happens
being determined.
Yeah, what happens if you're with a guy that has problems with that, the whole setting a goal thing and like sticking to it. What happens with your?
No, I mean it's everybody has to be on the same page.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
We were to the point where it was like, are we going to quit our day jobs and do this or not? You know, and my grandpa's in the back of my head going, "Don't quit your day job," you know. And
What do
it's
you
like,
think about that?
quitting your day job?
Yeah. What do you think?
I think it was the best decision I could have made for me. I don't think it's the best decision for everyone.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I got vocal nodes and couldn't sing, and so then I'd have been totally hosed. You know, so that's all good now and whatever else. But that was a long recovery. So.
We've talked about that a lot on the show, where sometimes in college they were, all of us at the music department, they're like, if you want to do this, really do this, you need to take like your sophomore year and just literally practice the whole year, and take a year and like go for it.
I was horrible, so like,
that's what this is a different thing,
Right,
the classical and jazz guys or whatever. You have to
yeah.
take a year and their point is you go for it. And you like put it all in, and then you have the kind of other people, which probably, I don't know, out of our 70 whatever, I mean, at least 60 of them would probably be in this other camp of, you don't know what's going to happen, if you're lucky / not lucky to have kind of a teaching day job where you're still getting to kind of outlet your music and your brain, then that's good, and because they're sitting probably more with this pessimism idea where that is so out of reach, the radio and stuff. I'm just gonna kind of and they also, there's so many guys that I talk to that are so annoyed with the performing monkey thing, where they're over Sweet Home Alabama and all of that crap.
It's $100 song, man. To this day, it's $100 song.
Yeah,
I'm not playing it ever.
But there's 50 others that are that
right.
to them, and so they feel that if they are able to have a day job and it's you know their money is mildly taken care of, then they don't have to be in the band that they don't want to be in, and they can kind of now pick and choose. And I'm like, that's a good argument, you know.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely, because you're not locked into surviving off of this band, and
But that's back to goal.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean, it's like
yeah.
what's the end result that you're looking for? You know,
have fun and do something, or
Right,
is
right.
it, you know?
like for me, it's writing songs, man. I love writing songs. I have a studio in my house. I sit and write, and performing is in my blood, and I have to get it out. If I go a couple weeks without playing, I'm gonna open mic somewhere. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I'm gonna go. You know, and with the songwriting, I got some advice from an old drummer of mine, and we were playing this show, and I'm like, man, I don't know, you know, what do you want to do? And he's like, play all your stuff. I'm like, nobody wants to hear my stuff, you know. I was very novice at that point in time, but he looks at me, he's like, shove it down their throat till they love it. And you know, that goes back, we were talking earlier. It was like I had the opportunity from John, the owner of the Beaumont Club, to play a lot of great shows there. And I didn't go in and play all cover songs to open the show. I went in and played my songs. And, you know, I was telling you, it was like my Garth Brooks moment. I got to have people, you know, packed house singing my song back to me. It was a really cool experience.
Yeah.
And you know, my bandmates and all I were all in shock. We're like, man, that is so awesome. But, you know, you have to put in the work to get to that point. Whether it's shoving your songs down their throat till they love it, or whether it's harassing. Now, I'm not going to tell you to go call Q104 or 106.5 or whatever else, but you go call like 100.1 up in Chillicothe or whatever, wherever these radio stations are that are.
In here, KKFI is.
Well, I've played on there a lot. Yeah, I mean, you know,
people listen to KKFI.
Sure they do.
You know, it'd be worth going on there for sure.
And you know, so I've done stuff on there, or you know, you just go to these small. Springfield's got a great radio station that'll put you on the air if you're playing a show in Springfield.
Yeah.
You know, you just got to find the niche. Tyler Jackson, he was on the radio station in Manhattan. You know, he loved having everybody on that was passing through. You know, he's the morning show guy out there and whatever else, and he'd play your music, and you know, you give him a CD and he'd spin it. I got a friend of mine in Sedalia that still spins my music, and you know,
that's cool, man.
So
that's fun.
Yeah, it's making these connections, and you know, I'll be driving down I-70. I'm like, hey, passing through, and next thing you know, here's my song on the radio. I'm like, oh, that's cool. You know,
that makes you feel good. I got another songwriting question for you. What do you think about like? When we recorded some of Scott's stuff recently,
right.
We played one of his ballads, and I thought it was really good, but then our recording guy threw in this piano with this little hook, and I'm like, okay, fine. You know, I was like, that's pretty good. You know, it was just this little hook, this little intro piano part, and then in the middle he threw it in again, and I was like, oh, god damn it. You know, like I was annoyed that I'm like
the worst
good.
person in the studio ever. Like,
but it's more of a songwriting question of what do you think of like hooks in songs or whatever.
They're necessary evil.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know, Walt Chambers, shout out to Walt and Andy Oxman at Soundworks Studios. I recorded all my stuff there. Andy's an amazing engineer, guitar player. Walt produced all my albums. Amazing guitar player, you know, and played on a lot of it. Most of the Outlaw Sonny played on all that, I think. But, you know, you find something that works, and you bring a couple people in, and you go, what do you think? You know? And we did this one thing. And I'm not a Kenny Chesney fan, and my buddy comes in, he's like, that sounds like Kenny Chesney. I'm like, scrap that right now, we're done. Well, I don't care, I'm overriding your producer, you know.
Right.
Like,
we gave Scott some crap the other day. Yeah. We're like, oh, you're, because right at the end we started, it was, what was it? It was, Wonderful Tonight. You know, So we right at the end of the thing, we, and he was like, you know, like, and we're like, you know, trying to get him, you know.
Anytime you get pissed, Scott, off, it's a good day.
You just basically wrote Wonderful Night. But anyway, but like, because I know a lot of, because I'm not in the jazz world, but I talk to a lot of the guys like that. Sure. And it's such a different thing than like what me and Scott do, because these guys are like insanely artsy. You know, that's a huge part of, like, they would never do hooks.
Right.
You know, they would never even think like that. Like,
But Scott's in the country realm, and hooks are rampant.
And they sound good, unfortunately.
And they do sound good, you know, and having that signature lick, you know, and whether it's on the fiddle or on, you know, guitar or whatever it is, it sells tickets, you know.
And the problem is that when you have that stupid little hook, that's the thing they're freaking singing 2 hours later.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's the annoying part.
Right, like in the songwriting, it's like, it goes back to, and on a very small scale, it goes, what are you trying to say in this song?
Yeah.
And whatever you're trying to say in the song is what you want people to hear. You know, I got into some deeper songwriting on my acoustic album where it was just trying to, I was in search of the best song, right? And being the most transparent that I could be. Well, in doing that, I confused the hell out of everybody with some of the songs because they didn't really understand what it was about.
You went off all over the place.
No, it wasn't all over the place. It was very direct to me in my head. But if you were just listening to the song, you wouldn't know where my head was. You know what I mean?
That's interesting.
So, if you're writing country music and not so much Americana folk stuff, it's very, you know, and keep it simple, stupid, you know, because most music you're selling to the lowest common denominator. So, you know what I mean? Like, they want the Kenny Chesney, Florida Georgia Line, you know, beer by the river crap that I don't ever want to write in my whole life, you know?
Yeah. So tell me, kind of probably wrapping up here soon, but tell me some more stories that you got from gigging or in the music business.
Most of them, I have a non-disclosure contract. Let's see. You know, just man. They didn't sell whiskey at my whiskey at this bar, and so I convinced them to let me bring a bottle in. That was pretty fun.
Yeah. It didn't end up, you know.
Oh, it ended
travesty
up
of a
exactly
night, you know?
how I thought it would.
That's funny.
But no, we had a lot of fun. We had, unbeknownst to us, we were playing a bar one weekend and then kind of the sister bar in a different town the next weekend. And some of the people that worked at the bar came back to the hotel and were after party and whatever else. And so we walk into this next bar and here's this guy that looks like Trace Atkins, ponytail, about, you know, I'm a tall guy, so he's inches above me. And I'm like, he's like, which one of you guys brought my daughter back to the hotel last week? And we're like, everybody points to Nate. We're like, Nate? It wasn't Nate, but it was just like, I'm not getting my butt kicked by Trace Atkins. And nothing bad happened. It was just everybody was partying or whatever else. But yeah, it was just
Was he just taught, you know?
He was just running his mouth. He knew nothing happened. He was just, you know.
That's funny, yeah.
It was.
What do you do? What do you do?
You know, and for anybody that's out there wanting to be involved in music but not a musician that might be watching this, you know, the merch guy, road manager, is the best gig in town because, you know, the musicians on our own stage playing, you're sitting at a merch table talking to all the girls all night. So that's really the best gig in the whole band if you really want to get down to it.
That's funny, yeah.
So
yeah, their off stage is annoying, but the on stage, sitting there, you know, having
exactly. You got to put up with all my crap,
and talking to all the people there. That's one thing that I find funny is that musicians, like, at least at these other bars, like Scott does a really good job of this, of talking to the audience, you know, like between breaks and after and
you
before.
have to.
But
it sells tickets.
But a lot of times, like, we can't go talk to them because we're playing.
Right.
You know, we're
Absolutely.
at the show and we're, you know, we can't, like...
Which is another thing, you know, like, these bars in Kansas City want you to play 4 hours. You go out to Colorado, they want you to play 5 hours, you know. Everybody has their kind of, we were talking about different states doing different things, but the thing of it is in Kansas City, and I think a lot of players in Kansas City have gotten to this, and if you haven't gotten to this, you should definitely do this. You play 3 1-hour sets. Because that opens up, number one, nobody stays around for the fourth set anyway, because it's too late at night. They've already drank too much, whatever else, right? And so everybody saves their best song for the fourth set, and they're playing to an empty bar. So 3 1-hour sets. Guess what? That opens up these big windows in between the sets where you can go talk to people and take advantage of that. And that sells tickets, and that sells merch, and that sells CDs, and that gets you booked in other places. Because if they show that, you know, the bands that get off stage and all go sit at a table by themselves, well, I've put up with them on the road for a long time. I don't really want to talk to them anymore.
Right.
Like, let's get over here and start
they're talking to the bass player.
Yeah.
The drummer's talking to the bass player the whole
right,
time.
yeah, the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you guys have been on the road talking to each other or whatever. We've been at rehearsal forever. We've done this. We've talked to each other to death. So, go meet some people.
Right.
You know, sell some tickets, sell some t-shirts, sell some CDs.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys in Kansas City that aren't very good at that, and I'm one of them. I need to, you know, do a little better job of going and talking to your fans, because that's the thing that has probably annoyed me the most is when you come to a club owner, how many people you bring in. You mentioned that, you know, and I get it, right? That's the whole point of why we're in here is the beer sales, but at the same time, like we've talked about this on the show a bunch of times, like is it in our best interest to bring people to shows? Well, absolutely. It's our best interest to go talk to this crowd.
Right.
It's our best, you know.
They came out there to see you. They wanted to hear you play, but they really wanted to see you. And probably the guy that taught me the most about that, and he didn't even teach me about it, I just watched him do it. And his name's Jason Bolin. And Jason was out of Stillwater and now lives in Austin and tours on a big bus, and he does all the cool kid stuff or whatever. And we were with him in King's Ballroom many moons ago in Tulsa, and I mean, sold out, 5,000 people in there, right? And Jason was the first person off the stage and at the merch table signing autographs to 5,000 people.
Yeah,
and sat there till they were done.
Yeah,
you know, and that's what people want to see.
Yeah,
they want to see you, but they want that picture. They want that, you know.
Yeah. They want to hang with you too. That's the other thing that I keep forgetting is that I keep thinking that they want to come hear your beautiful music or whatever. Not really. Yeah,
most of it is,
but, you know.
Yeah, most of it is they want to see your music, but they also want to feel like they got to take something from you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You came to their table and hung with them for at least 45 seconds, and you said hi, you know, or more, you know, and, like there's a couple guys we see in town that are just, you know, they get off stage and they're busy. They're seeing everybody, so we're okay with the 45 seconds we get, you know, but they make it a point to come over.
Even if, excuse me, if I'm late getting back on stage, the bar owner's not going to be mad about that.
Right.
If I'm out working the crowd.
Right.
But if I'm sitting at my table by myself and not working the crowd, now he's going to be like, well, you guys just been sitting here the whole night. You haven't done anything. But if I'm out talking to people, they understand people are going to talk to you, and they may take longer than what your set break needs to be taken or whatever. But
and if they don't understand that, then I mean
they're out of they're in the wrong business anyway. You know, because as a bar owner, they get it too, because they have people want to talk to them all the time to say they know the bar owner or whatever else. You know, so just make sure you make it a point to talk to your fans, man. That's what they're there for. You know.
There's a bit of arrogance in that of not wanting to, you know, thinking I'm so good and I shouldn't need to, you know, there's...
Yeah, then you need your reality check, you know, and that was my point in telling, you know, here's Jason with 5,000 people, and he still went out and talked to everyone there that wanted to talk to him, you know. They may have to stay in line a while, but they still talked to him. So. Right. You know, and the other thing I've touched on it a little bit is merchandise, you know. Merchandise puts gas in the tank, and, you know, bands aren't making any more money than they made in the 70s, you know. I mean, if you're playing around Kansas City, you're probably making $100 a man, and maybe a little more if you're lucky, but that's pretty much the going rate as far as I've heard, and which is why I play mostly solo acoustic shows, just because I can make money that way.
Duos and solos,
man, and honestly, people like that because it's not this overbearing blasting music at them all night long, and
the volume's down,
and the volume's controllable because you don't have the drums setting the volume and everything else, but merchandise. Man, I'll tell you, my most popular item was women's underwear. It had my name on it. Is that crazy or what? I would sell out of those. The first show I had them every single time.
Who wears those?
Not me, but I'd get 2 dozen in the first night. They'd be gone. I'm like, man, I should have got 3 dozen. You know, it was like
that's funny.
It never seemed like I ever had enough.
I don't even know if I want to tell Scott that idea. God. He would, you know,
Yeah, it'd be left
run,
field.
right. He'd run
Yeah.
with that in a
Yeah.
very terrible way. But well, cool, man. Well, yeah, it was. Well, it's
Real quick, if I can plug
do it.
something real quick.
Do it.
Soundworks Studios, for anybody that wants to record, call Andy Oxman out there. It's in Blue Springs. They can listen to my stuff online. Any of my recorded stuff out there, it's quality. And like I said, I had music on the charts in Texas, so it's radio quality recordings. And then Walt Chambers for guitar lessons and or producing anything that that you guys are interested in having produced. And Landmarks Graphics out in Lenexa did all my merch for me, and they'll give you a great deal if you tell them you saw this podcast and talk to me about it or whatever. So give Jimmy a call out at Landmarks. He'll hook you up.
Yeah, that's cool, man. It's always nice to find good rates or quality for recording and all that kind of stuff. You know, we're always looking for photographers and that kind of stuff. You know.
Rebel Photography, Misty. She did. I had to think about it for a minute. She did my photos for me most recently, so she did a great job on those. So
that's cool, man. Yeah, well, thanks for coming on here, man. Sharing a little bit. This is one of the reasons why I want to do the show, is to talk about stuff like what we talked about tonight, because I think I've said this on probably every single podcast, that this is the stuff that we're just not good at. Like, as in general, as we're good at playing music, but all of the merch, the dealing with club owners, the booking, the advertising, all of that kind of stuff, we're just, in general, I feel not very good at as musicians. And the people that get good at that, all of a sudden, they're on the radio, or they're not on the radio, but
right. Yeah, I know
they're
what you're
doing
saying.
better
Yeah.
usually. And if you're not good at that, you're usually sitting with that pessimism stuff that I was talking about, where, it's just the this and it's just the crowds and the 2000s is just,
Believe me, I've been there, and I've had a big head before when I shouldn't have, and everybody has their own cross to bear, and I've bore mine for a long time. But anybody hit me up on Facebook or whatever. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to help you walk through any of the stuff that I talked about. Like I said, I didn't pave this way. I'm just driving down it, and there are people ahead of me that helped me get there. So if there's something I can do to help you get, you see me playing a venue you want to play, hit me up. I'll help you get in. I mean, that's the least I can do for all the blessings I've had.
That's really nice, man. A lot of people don't have that attitude. Scott Ford, thanks for coming in,
You
man.
bet, man. I appreciate you having me. We'll do it again.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. See you guys next time. Get out of here.